What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Buzz. Garry has issued one of the boldest call-outs of the year, outlining a clear plan for how he believes he can end Islam Makhachev's legendary streak and claim the welterweight title. Garry insists he is operating on a level above the top contenders at 170 pounds, including Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to ever defeat him. The Rakhmonov situation, he says, remains complicated. His recent injury was severe enough that Russian outlets reported he was even considering retirement, frustrated that the UFC seemed to prioritize star power over merit. But Rakhmonov now appears fully committed to returning and reclaiming his momentum. Garry didn't stop at calling out fighters. He directly criticized Islam's team, accusing them of playing safe with their matchmaking. According to him, their push for a fight with Kamaru Usman is strategic and risk-averse. He argues Usman is no longer a serious contender, approaching 40, barely inside the top 10, and far removed from the title picture. Garry believes Islam only wants that matchup because it offers the easiest path to extending his win streak. He insists that if Islam truly wants a real challenge, he should look toward the hungry, rising contenders instead of fading veterans. Garry sees himself as the future of the division and the man destined to stop the Dagestani champion's run. He explained his plan clearly. First, defeat Bilal Muhammad to remove all doubt about his position as the rightful next challenger. Then, end Islam's streak before it reaches 17 by taking the belt from him. After that, he wants to defend his title against Shavkat Rakhmonov to avenge his only career loss and prove he is levels above him. Finally, Garry aims to face Carlos Patches, beating him in Brazil, a place he calls his adopted country, claiming Brazilian fans support him even more passionately than they do Patches. Before moving on to the next news, we have a quick request for you. We're always working to improve our content and truly value your support. If you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, it would mean a lot to us. That way, you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. The welterweight division has been chaotic ever since Jack Della Maddalena's loss to Islam Makhachev, and the criticism hasn't slowed down. Garry immediately jumped on the situation, claiming Jack showed no competitiveness and folded the moment Islam pressured him. Garry even suggested JDM would make excuses instead of accepting responsibility, which only intensified the backlash. TJ Dillashaw later broke down the fight in detail on his podcast. He analyzed every technical error Jack made, from his defensive reactions to his grappling responses. However, even TJ admitted that none of those adjustments would have changed the outcome. Islam's wrestling is built on decades of mastery, and at welterweight there are very few fighters equipped to handle that level of control. According to many analysts, the only realistic threats to Islam at 170 are Kamaru Usman, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Garry, who remains the only fighter to ever take Shavkat's back and put him in real danger on the ground. Makhachev is not expected to return until May 2026, with Ramadan ahead and Ilia Topuria scheduled to fight before then. By the time Islam is back, the division will finally have clarity on his next opponent. Dillashaw went deeper into JDM's mistakes, explaining that the key to beating Islam is keeping him moving backward. Once Jack became overly cautious of the takedown and stopped pressuring, he gave Islam the exact distance he needed. Earlier in the fight, Jack was pushing forward, throwing heavy hooks, keeping Islam off balance with a high chin and backward movement, the moments where he had the best chance. But the moment he gave Islam space and comfort, the double legs came effortlessly. Dillashaw emphasized that Islam's takedowns are not only fast, but set up brilliantly by the constant threat of wrestling. He added that while Islam's striking is solid, its real power comes from the looming threat of takedowns that force opponents into hesitation. Islam's grappling edge isn't simply technique, it's a lifetime of wrestling experience. Dillashaw pointed out that jiu-jitsu alone cannot prepare a fighter for MMA grappling. Fighters must train MEA-specific jiu-jitsu, understanding how to transition, get into deep half guard, and build towards single legs, rather than relying on pure sport jiu-jitsu strategies like omoplatas or butterfly sweeps. Move on to another news. Alex Pereira confronted Michael Bisping at UFC Qatar, and the situation escalated far more intensely than anyone expected. This wasn't the calm, stoic Alex fans are used to. He walked straight up to Bisping, stared him down, and the tension rose immediately. Bisping later said the energy felt completely different, like Alex had been waiting for the right moment to address something personal. Things heated up further when Pereira's coach, Plinio Cruz, stepped in and started taking verbal shots at Bisping, adding fuel to an already charged moment. The confrontation didn't come out of nowhere. It traced back to comments Bisping made after Pereira lost his belt to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313. At the time, Bisping questioned Alex's mentality, saying he looked flat, unfocused, and lacking urgency. Alex clearly took those remarks to heart and hadn't forgotten them. Their face-to-face at Qatar was the first time time Pereira let his frustration show publicly. And to be fair, Bisping wasn't entirely wrong. That first Pereira vs Ankalaev fight was a tough watch. Alex looked disconnected and far from his usual explosive self. But the rematch told a completely different story. Pereira came back with aggression, precision, and focus, dominating Ankalaev and leaving no room for doubt. Looking ahead, Pereira is now expected to face either Carlos Ulberg or the winner of Tom Aspinall vs Cyril Gane in 2026, depending on how the division shakes out. Bisping later recounted the moment. He was returning to his hotel with his wife when he spotted Pereira standing outside with his translator, coach, and manager. Bisping approached him respectfully, greeted him, and shook his hand, but instantly felt the hostility. According to Bisping, Alex stared at him like he wanted to tear him apart. Realizing it might be about his previous analysis, Bisping tried to ease the tension, but even the translator joined in with sarcastic comments about his handshake. Bisping joked as he walked away, telling them not to beat him up, acknowledging the awkwardness of the moment. Move on to another news. Kamaru Usman isn't buying Dana White's dramatic story about Francis Ngannou. After Dana went viral claiming Francis put his hands on him during a heated confrontation at the UFC office, Usman reacted on his show and made it clear that the story simply doesn't make sense to him. He didn't call Dana a liar, but he strongly implied that the situation couldn't have played out the way Dana described it. Usman said that when you visualize Dana's version, Francis storming into his office, demanding $50,000, grabbing Dana, and ordering him and Hunter Campbell around, it becomes almost comical. That's the picture people got from Dana's telling, and to Usman it's impossible to imagine happening in real life. He emphasized that everyone around Dana operates with professionalism and awareness. Nobody just walks into Dana White's office, puts hands on him, demands money, and starts issuing commands to the UFC president and its top executive. That's why Usman says he finds the story extremely hard to believe, even if he isn't accusing Dana of fabricating it entirely. In his view, the incident may have happened in a much less dramatic way than the viral quote made fans imagine. During a recent appearance, Dana doubled down on how fighters are supposed to earn their money, not by barging into offices, but by elevating their star power the right way. He referenced Conor McGregor as the prime example, comparing his ability to promote fights and get inside opponents' heads to the legendary Muhammad Ali Doito. Dana explained that Conor's talent and personality created opportunities far beyond the octagon, allowing him to make massive income outside of fighting in a way almost no one else in combat sports history has achieved. While most fighters rely solely on their performances to secure their paydays, Dana noted that McGregor managed to build a global brand through mental warfare, entertainment value, and star power. Usman, however, still maintains that the Francis confrontation story doesn't add up the way Dana presented it, and fans remain divided over who to believe. Move on to another news. Dana White has suspended a UFC fighter after a PED violation rocked the MMA community. Reports confirm that Yasmin Lucindo tested positive for mesterolone, a banned substance typically used to treat low testosterone or hypogonadism in men. Lucindo, currently 5'2" in the UFC, and coming off a strong win over Angela Hill, was scheduled to face Jillian Robertson on December 13. However, the positive test immediately pulled her from the bout. Despite the suspension, Lucindo's team strongly denies any intentional wrongdoing. They insist she never knowingly used a prohibited substance, and are now working closely with both USADA's successor program and the Nevada State Athletic Commission to investigate whether contamination was the cause. Her manager, Thiago Okamura, explained the timeline. Lucindo was flagged in late September for metabolites of the banned substance, yet she had tested negative in both August and October. This inconsistency, he argues, supports the theory of contamination rather than deliberate use. Okamura emphasized that the detected metabolite levels were extremely low and did not match patterns typically associated with intentional PD cycles. He added that Lucindo's team, alongside the UFC and anti-doping partners, is working urgently to identify the source. Since the flag test occurred while Lucindo was booked to compete in Las Vegas, the NSAA holds full jurisdiction over the case. According to her team, 2 specific supplements she used align with the testing timeline. Both products have now been sent to the Myrtle lab in Utah for detailed analysis. Their goal is to determine whether a tainted supplement caused the result and to maintain complete transparency throughout the investigation. Lucindo remains one of the UFC's youngest rising prospects at just 23 years old, and the situation has sparked major debate among fans and analysts. Some believe the contamination explanation is plausible given the pattern of her tests, while others think stricter accountability is necessary regardless of intent. What's clear is that the final ruling from the NSAC and the lab results will determine Lucindo's immediate future in the UFC. Move on to another news. Dricus du Plessis has finally opened up about his loss to Khamzat Chimaev, months after one of the most dominant title fights in UFC middleweight history. Back in August, fans watched Khamzat overwhelm DDP in a performance that immediately became one of the most talked about championship displays of the year. Other than a brief social media statement afterward, du Plessis had remained quiet, until now. In his original message, DDP took full responsibility for the defeat and refused to make excuses, writing that he was beaten by the better fighter that night and was grateful for the chance to share the octagon with Chimaev. Now, a newly released video, apparently part of an ad campaign for Crypto.com, shows DDP reflecting on the loss with powerful narration layered over footage from the fight and the emotional moments that followed. Although the full clip can't be shown, du Plessis' words from the video are striking. He says that moments like these do not define defeat, but humanity, and that being human requires immense courage. He explains that losses are not merely about survival, but are the environments where champions are created. According to DDP, true bravery comes from enduring failure and still standing tall. It's a quality, he says, that is built over a lifetime and cannot be taken from him. He ends the message with a promise. The journey continues. He is Dricus du Plessis. He was born brave, and he will return. The ad has resonated deeply with fans, many of whom felt the emotional weight of DDP's message and the humility in his response to such a tough loss. Now the conversation shifts to what comes next. Should du Plessis immediately pursue a rematch with Khamzat Chimaev, or is it better for him to take 1 or 2 fights to rebuild momentum before challenging for the title again? With his mindset stronger than ever, DDP's comeback path will be one of the most closely watched storylines in the division. Move on to another news. Arman Tsarukyan is already looking ahead, and if he gets the job done against Dan Hooker this Saturday at UFC Qatar, he plans to call out Ilia Topuria for an in-octagon face-off. Topuria is expected to be in attendance to support his brother Alexander, who will be fighting on the same card. According to Arman, if he earns a strong finish, he will invite Topuria into the cage right after the fight to set the stage for a future showdown. A face-off in front of the crowd would instantly fuel hype for a potential title eliminator, especially with Arman likely next in line, assuming the UFC doesn't unexpectedly hand the opportunity to Paddy Pimblett, despite Topuria publicly expressing interest in that matchup. Arman also shared his thoughts on Islam Makhachev's recent performance against Jack Della Maddalena, saying the fight looked like a champion competing against an amateur. He praised Islam for showcasing a completely different level of skill, stating that Makhachev is far ahead of the rest of the division and will be extremely difficult to dethrone, even if he moves up to 170 pounds. It was also revealed that Khamzat Chimaev will be in Arman's corner at UFC Qatar. Earlier this year, Arman was in Khamzat's corner for his title bout against Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319. Their partnership has been growing for months, and their training chemistry is stronger than ever. A recent clip shows Khamzat motivating Arman during an intense workout session, pushing him to surpass his limits and stay mentally sharp. Their bond has clearly evolved into a powerful competitive alliance, and with Khamzat supporting him cage-side, Arman aims to deliver a statement performance and set up the biggest fight of his career. Move on to another news. Kamaru Usman recently opened up about a rare moment in his career, getting knocked out during training. Speaking on the Daniel Cormier show, Usman revealed that before the famous head kick knockout from Leon Edwards, he had only been knocked out once in his entire fighting life. It happened during a sparring session with Michael Johnson, who at the time was just 3 weeks away from a fight and in peak condition. Usman explained that he had taken 2 weeks off after his own fight and returned straight into intense sparring with Johnson. The lightweight contender was extremely fast, sharp, and fully prepared. According to Usman, the two went a full 5 minutes, and toward the end of the round, Johnson turned up the pressure and caught him clean. The shot dropped Usman hard, sending him sitting back and falling onto his arm. He even admitted there is video footage of the incident, which has never been released but still exists in the archives. Former UFC champion Rashad Evans also has a copy and occasionally reminds Usman of the moment. joking about keeping him humble. Usman expressed surprise that the video has never leaked, acknowledging that in today's clout-chasing world, anything damaging tends to surface quickly, especially once someone becomes champion. But the clip has stayed private because those who were there genuinely care about him. Usman emphasized how the moment showcases Michael Johnson's underrated talent. He described Johnson as a rare mix of speed and power despite his lean frame, a fighter capable of putting real pressure on anyone. That sparring knockdown, Usman admitted, was a testament to how skilled Johnson truly was and still is.